All There Is with Anderson Cooper. All There Is with Anderson Cooper, a journey into grief, healing, and the human condition. All There Is with Anderson Cooper is a deeply personal, introspective podcast that takes listeners on a profound journey through the human experience, particularly grief and the emotional challenges that shape our lives. Hosted by Anderson Cooper, the renowned CNN anchor, journalist, and author, this podcast offers a unique, intimate exploration of grief, loss, and the quest for healing. Unlike many other podcasts hosted by journalists, All There Is stands out by its focus on vulnerability and emotional connection. It's not just a podcast about the news or current events, it's about the universal emotions that everyone, no matter their background or experiences, can relate to. Through the series, Cooper shares his own reflections on the loss of his beloved mother, Gloria Vanderbilt, while also inviting listeners into the lives of other guests who have faced personal loss, offering powerful conversations about love, life, and the complexity of grief. The concept behind All There Is. The premise of All There Is centered around the universal theme of grief. Anderson Cooper, known for his career as a journalist and broadcaster, uses this podcast as a platform to explore the ways in which grief can shape us, how we navigate it, and how we find meaning in the aftermath of loss. Each episode presents a different perspective on grief, whether it's through conversations with experts in psychology or through intimate interviews with people from all walks of life who have experienced profound loss. Cooper's openness about his own experience with grief after the death of his mother is what truly drives the podcast. It's a raw and vulnerable exploration, not only of the pain of losing a loved one but also of the unexpected moments of beauty, clarity, and connection that can emerge in the wake of that loss. This creates a podcast that feels incredibly intimate, like a conversation with a close friend or a trusted confidant, making it a deeply moving experience for the listener. Grief as a shared human experience. One of the unique aspects of All There Is that it does not treat grief as something to be fixed or avoided. Instead, it presents grief as a complex, multifaceted experience that is part of the broader human condition. The podcast acknowledges that grief is not just about mourning someone's death, but about navigating the emotional terrain of loss in all its forms, whether it's the loss of a person, a relationship, an opportunity, or even an identity. In each episode, Cooper has candid conversations with a variety of guests who have experienced grief in different ways. Some episodes feature well-known public figures, while others focus on everyday people who have gone through heart-wrenching experiences. These guests share their stories, offering their own reflections on how they coped, what they learned, and the unexpected moments of healing they encountered along the way. Through these conversations, listeners are reminded that grief, in all its forms, is something that connects all of us, regardless of who we are or where we come from. Anderson Cooper's personal journey. The podcast's deeply personal nature is perhaps most apparent in Anderson Cooper's own journey with grief. As someone who is usually seen in the public eye reporting on the stories of others, it's rare to hear such raw vulnerability from a journalist of his stature. Cooper's emotional honesty is the backbone of the podcast. Through his reflections on his mother's death, he brings listeners into the process of grieving and healing, making it clear that even someone with his level of fame and success is not immune to life's challenges. In several episodes, Cooper shares personal stories about his mother, Gloria Vanderbilt, and how her passing affected him, not only emotionally but also psychologically. He reflects on the complexities of their relationship, the ways in which he cared for her in her final years, and the pain of losing a parent. But what makes these moments resonate is Cooper's ability to find meaning and connection within his grief. Through these intimate stories, listeners are given a window into the private side of one of the most well-known figures in the media world, showing a side of him that many may not have seen before. This vulnerability is not just therapeutic for Cooper, it also provides a space for listeners to reflect on their own grief, helping them feel less alone in their struggles. It's a gentle reminder that while grief is a difficult, often isolating experience, it is also a profoundly shared one. Expert insights on grief and healing. While the podcast is deeply personal, it also offers expert perspectives on how to cope with grief. In many episodes, Cooper speaks with psychologists, grief counselors, and other experts who provide valuable insights into the process of grieving. These experts offer practical advice on managing grief, understanding its stages, and learning how to navigate its complexities in healthy ways. A standout episode features an interview with David Kessler, a world-renowned expert on grief who co-authored a book with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross on the 5 stages of grief. Kessler's insights into how grief affects us psychologically, emotionally, and physically provide listeners with a deeper understanding of what grief actually is and why it can feel so all-consuming. His advice on finding ways to remember and honor loved ones, even after their passing, gives the episode a sense of hope and resolution. These expert interviews help balance the more personal, emotional elements of the podcast with practical wisdom and coping strategies, offering listeners both comfort and guidance. The universal message of healing. While the podcast focuses on grief, it's ultimately about healing and the human capacity to find meaning in even the darkest moments. Each episode reminds listeners that, while grief may never fully go away, it can change over time, and the pain can eventually be woven into the fabric of our lives. The journey through grief is not linear, and it doesn't have a set timeline, but there are moments of joy, clarity, and healing that emerge along the way. Through the personal stories shared in All There Is, listeners are reminded that healing is possible, and that grief can be an opportunity for growth and transformation. The podcast emphasizes that, although we may not have control over the losses we face, we do have control over how we respond to them and how we choose to carry them forward. Conclusion. All There Is with Anderson Cooper is much more than just a podcast about grief. It's a heartfelt exploration of what it means to live with loss, to heal, and to find strength in vulnerability. Anderson Cooper's personal reflections, combined with the powerful stories of others and the insights of grief experts, create a show that is equal parts emotional and enlightening. For anyone who has experienced loss, All There Is offers both comfort and connection, providing a space where listeners can process their own emotions, find solace in the stories of others, and ultimately understand that healing is a journey. This podcast is a must-listen for those seeking a deeper understanding of grief, life, and the profound human experiences that bind us all.